we looked at the unawareness of behavioral cause and effect and how that underlies our experience of unhappiness. And now we need to look at the second type of unawareness, much deeper type of unawareness, which is unawareness of reality, how we exist, how others exist, how everybody and everything exists. And this is underlying our experience of ordinary happiness as well as our experience of unhappiness. It underlies both of them. And what it leads to is, or what it's accompanied by, I should say, but it supports it, is what's known as grasping for impossible ways of existing. Grasping, this word, you have to understand, has two meanings. One is that the mind projects impossible ways for things to exist, such as, for instance, with ourselves, that I am the center of the universe, I am the most important, I should always have my way, people should pay attention to me, what I believe is important. You know, it leads to this thing, if, you know, why people feel that nowadays, because the world is so unpredictable, that somehow if they broadcast their thoughts and feelings on Twitter or on Facebook, that somehow it makes them real. You know, they count or something like that. I tweet, therefore I exist. I have a Facebook page, therefore I exist. If you don't have a Facebook page, you don't exist. You know, this sort of thing. You can't have friends. I mean, it's really quite bizarre. But in any case, we have this term grasping. What it means is that the mind projects some impossible way of existing, like I'm the center of the universe, and then that's the background. And then that word grasp means that we perceive that, and the second meaning is that you believe that it corresponds to reality. So it has two levels. In other words, my mind makes me feel as though I'm the center of the universe, and that is, again, based on a hardware problem, that you close your eyes and everything outside disappears, and, well, I'm still there, and so somehow I can shut out the world, and I'm the center of my universe. So, you know, that's really based on a hardware limitation, isn't it? And it feels like that. This is this thing of perceiving that. You know, I mean, we perceive it, it feels like that, and we believe it. That's what grasping, that word grasping means. Very, very important. You know, we have all this jargon in Buddhism that we get definitions and get explanations of all the terms. This is what makes the Tibetan tradition so rich, is that they actually do have definitions of all the terms, so we can learn them. Very, very helpful. So, because we're unaware of how things exist, then when our mind projects all this impossible ways in which things seem to exist, and we believe it, and we're unaware that it doesn't correspond to reality. See how it fits together with that. And being unaware of that, then we have disturbing attitudes. It's called the disturbing attitude, and this is we have disturbing emotions, we have disturbing attitudes. A disturbing attitude is a way of, it's a state of mind. Again, it fits this general definition. When it arises, you lose peace of mind and you lose self-control. And what it does is it latches out, it sort of reaches out to various things and wants to throw onto it or project onto it some sort of attitude, basically, way of understanding it, a way of perceiving it. And so here, what is the most common one is throwing out this net, as it were, of me and mine onto everything. So we think I'm the center of the universe, and then we throw it out to everybody. You should pay attention to me. You know, what I say is important. Or this computer is mine. Don't use it. You know, that's my chair. Don't sit in it. This type of disturbing attitude. That's just an example. There's a list of them. Now, based on that, so it's misconceptions basically about ourselves. You know, it's throwing it out, and then the misconceptions come up. And that can lead to, for example, again, compulsion. And it could be compulsive destructive behavior, or it could be compulsive I can't even say it straightly, compulsive constructive behavior. So, that's my computer. Don't use it. So it could underlie getting angry with anybody, being very, who wants to use it, you're going to ruin it. And then we're very attached to it. This type of thing. But one has to, so there's a disturbing emotion that's there as well. Or it's very important to recognize this in compulsive constructive behavior. So what would be an example of that? An example of that would be being a perfectionist. Constantly have to clean your house. You just cleaned it before, but have to clean it again. Or constantly wash your hands. Or if you are writing a paper for school or for something like that, going over it again and again and again, always correcting it, trying to make it perfect, pushing yourself. I have to be good. You know, the sort of stiffness that some people have. I have to be the good one. So it's constructive. It's not that you're hurting anybody. And it will give you, that cleaning your house one is a very good example, actually, because you've cleaned it and now everything is perfect and clean and you feel happy, but of course that doesn't last, does it? And very quickly, ooh, there's a spot over there, and, we're worried and so on that our child is going to spill something or anything like that. We're going around. Compulsive. No control, and it's certainly not a peaceful state of mind. So that, when you think about karma, don't just think about destructive behavior. It's also our ordinary constructive behavior when it's compulsive. We might use the more psychological term neurotic, but this is what is involved there. So, we have this type of cause for our ordinary happiness. That's this compulsive, constructive behavior, positive behavior, but it's based on this misconception throwing at me, this is my house, I have to make it perfect, I have to be perfect, my house has to be perfect, I have to be perfect, the paper that I write has to be perfect, and you're never satisfied. It's interesting, you're never satisfied. I know that because I write a lot. You're never satisfied. It's never good enough. That's also a very good example of this compulsive, constructive thing. I'm never good enough, so I have to always try to do more. That's not a healthy way of developing ourselves. That's a very compulsive, neurotic way of helping ourselves, based on a big me, and I have to be perfect. So it's a misconception about ourselves. So we have this type of confusion. It's another technical term, confusion based on unawareness. We just don't know, or we know in a completely inverted opposite way. So it's also a good thing to reflect upon for a moment and try to recognize it in our own behavior. Another good example is compulsively correcting other people. You know, some people are like that. They always have to correct the other person, whether they want to be corrected or not. Whether or not it's appropriate. As in correcting how your daughter raises her children, how she keeps her house, these type of things which are not appreciated at all. How they dress, another good one. There's many levels to that, isn't there? Because you think that it's going to, well, I'm just trying to be helpful. You think that. But actually it's not helpful at all. So you're also confused about the effect of your behavior. Okay. So you can see there's a whole mixture of different levels of confusion and different levels of compulsiveness that are involved in perpetuating these problems of up and down, happy, unhappy. So now we have to go to a deeper level, and the deeper level is how our unawareness of how we exist and how others exist, how everything exists, how that is the true cause of our all-pervasive suffering of uncontrollably recurring aggregates. And now we get a whole bunch of jargon. Uncontrollably recurring tainted aggregates. Let's add another technical term there. Aggregates. Well, to put it just very, very simply, body and mind. To make it a little bit more complex, talking about the body, the mind, the emotions, the feelings, you know, the whole package, what we have. And they are tainted. Tainted means that it's a technical term. You look at the definition, and it means that it is generated by unawareness of how we exist. It's generated by that, comes from that. And another word that is used in connection with it is obtainer aggregates. And obtainer means that it contains within it the unawareness that will obtain for us yet more aggregates. So this is the whole problem here, that it's perpetuating itself. Comes from our unawareness or ignorance, and it contains that unawareness or ignorance, and it will perpetuate more. It's uncontrollably recurring. That's the whole point. And the type of body and mind and emotional makeup and so on that we have will be the basis with which we experience the up and down, happy, unhappy, happy, unhappy. What we want to do is to somehow change or get rid of that type of basis and the misconception that we might have from the non-Buddhist Indian systems, where they talk about liberation from that, is that their concept is that you could just escape from it and exist in some sort of transcendent realm totally dissociated, independent of that. And Buddhism says there's no such thing. That's a fantasy. That what you want, we can only exist on the basis of a body and mind and so on. But the type of body and mind that we have, we want one which is not tainted, which is not coming because of our confusion about how we exist, but one which is based on understanding, which will be a completely different type of body and mind, that although it might go through the motions of being a baby and growing up and stuff like that, won't experience this type of happy and unhappy. It will experience either always, completely different quality of happiness, so-called bliss, or it, as a Buddha, or if we are just a liberated being, either that type of untainted happiness or a neutral state when you're very deep in some sort of meditation. Anyway, we shouldn't think that the Buddhist teaching is that, somehow samsara is here and nirvana is over there, and you want to leave this place and go to that place. And now we're in nirvana like it's some sort of paradise. It's not like that. What we want to do is change the basis for our experience. Get rid of this limited basis, the limited hardware. Okay? Now, I suppose I should just explain a little bit more fully what we mean by the aggregates. Because we have tainted aggregates now, received from our shouldn't think that a Buddha doesn't have 5 aggregates. It's just completely different quality of aggregates. So what is the word aggregate? Again, jargon. The word aggregate is a network of different things. A lot of people use the word collection. Collection sounds like a collection of stamps in a stamp album. It's not that they are, here's one stamp, here's another stamp, here's another stamp, and you have a collection. But rather it is many things that interact and work with each other. So they network. I like that word, network. Aggregates are just a helpful way of understanding or analyzing what makes up each moment of our experience. Aggregates themselves are just a scheme for classifying what makes up our experience. It's not as though they are actual boxes that exist somewhere, and this part of our experience fits in this box, and that part fits in that box. So don't, misconceive of these things as actual boxes that exist somewhere. They're more, the technical word is metaphysical type of phenomenon. So each moment of our experience is made up of many, many different components. And if you can become aware of it, you realize that each of our experience, and see that, wow, there's so many different things that are changing, so many variables. Need to adjust in this way or that way, either more or less, get rid of this, increase that, and so on, but without there being a separate me that is doing the fixing, that's controlling and seeing, aha, I have to wear my hair differently or do something like that. And then, it comes in and it does that to the body as if it was a separate me that's in there. It's not like that. So anyway, we have our experience. We have forms of physical phenomenon. The forms of physical phenomenon are sights and sounds and smells and tastes and physical sensations, hot, cold, soft, hard, physical sensation of motion, all sorts of physical sensations. And Then there are more subtle forms of physical phenomenon, like in our dreams, so-called mental sights and sounds and physical sensations and so on that you experience in dreams. There are also the what's called sensors, which are the photosensitive cells of your eyes and the sound sensitive of the ears and smell sensitive of the nose and taste sensitive of the tongue and sensation sensitive of the body. And in general, you could say your whole body is part of the form aggregate. So every moment of our experience, we are experiencing usually not just one of these, because we see and we hear at the same time, don't we? And if you can become aware of it, you also feel the physical sensation of the temperature of the room, the pressure of the seat that you're sitting on, feeling of your clothing on your body, the physical sensation of the tongue in your mouth. That's a really weird one. And the taste of your saliva. There's all sorts of the smell of the room. All of that's there. That information is coming in. So we have all of this. I don't know if you can actually call it information or what. That gets into a whole nother technical jargon. But anyway, we have all this sense data, sensory stuff. So that's the form aggregate. All of that's changing every moment, obviously, because people are moving and we're moving and so on. Then we have consciousness. And consciousness, unlike the Western idea of consciousness, which is just one thing, here we speak of, well, there are different systems, but we'll stay with the simple one of 6 types of consciousness. And this has to do with what channel we're on, if you put it into simple language. During this experience, am I on the seeing channel, the hearing channel, the smelling channel, tasting, feeling a physical sensation channel, or mental channel, thinking, or dreaming? It is, definition, it's aware of the essential nature of its object. So it's aware of that this is a sight, that this is sound. If you think again in terms of computers, if all this data is, now excuse me, I'm not a computer engineer, so I may be oversimplifying and incorrect in my analogy, but if everything is digital, this would be able, the primary consciousness decodes the digital, information, that this is visual information, this is audio information. It's amazing that a computer can do that. But this is what we're talking about when we're talking about consciousness. It's just aware of what type of data it is that we're experiencing. Then you have to have what's often translated as recognition, which is a terribly misleading translation. It is distinguishing. Recognize implies that you knew it already and then you recognize it again, which is not what we're talking about. We're talking about distinguishing. You have a sense field. So if we talk about sight, you can look at it at one level that, okay, I'm looking now, and what do I see? I see colored shapes. Or you could take it on a more subtle level. I'm seeing pixels, colored pixels. Now, we don't just see colored pixels or colored shapes, do we? In order to be able to experience things, in order to be able to deal with life, you have to put them together, don't you? And distinguish these colored shapes as a knowable object. And we're in pretty bad shape if we can't put the colored shapes that we perceive into proper, conventionally accepted objects. And a baby can do that, a worm can do that. Everybody can do that. That's distinguishing. So we're talking about something very, very basic. We talk about these aggregates. It has to be so basic that even the worm has this. So distinguishing. A newborn infant can distinguish. It doesn't know what it is. You don't have to know what it is. But a newborn infant can distinguish between the physical sensation of hunger or not hunger. It's clear. Okay, now, feeling. The aggregate of feeling is how we experience things. And it's only talking about the spectrum of happy and unhappy. That's all it's talking about. So don't get misled by, I don't know about in Danish, but in English, the word feeling also includes emotions. And it's not included here. We're only talking about happy and unhappy. And this is what differentiates us from a computer. You think about it, it's very profound. A computer will take in information, it will decode it as in terms of visual or audio data. It will distinguish words within all those the digital information. So it can do all of that, but it doesn't feel happy or unhappy about it. Does it? That's the difference between a machine and a being, a living being. A being with a mind. Being with a mind. I mean, that gets into the whole thing. A plant is not a sentient being. Why? Because what we're talking about is, we're not talking about life. We're not talking about, biology. We're talking about those beings that have a mind. And having a mind means experiencing things. And experiencing things means that on the basis of your behavior, intentional behavior, usually compulsive behavior, you experience happy or unhappy. That is what we're talking about when we're talking about sentient beings. So by that definition, a plant is not a sentient being. And a lot of us Westerners get very confused because we think in terms of life and biology. It's not that. So what distinguishes us then as sentient beings is like what I call a being with a limited mind, limited being for short, is that we experience what we're experiencing, with consciousness and forms of physical phenomenon and distinguishing within the sense fields or the mental field, happy or unhappy. And then the fifth aggregate is everything else. That changes. So it's not at all symmetrical. Even number of things in the five. It's not like that at all. But this other aggregate is everything else that affects our experience. So there's where we have all the emotions, where we have all the mental factors that enable us to perceive anything. So attention, interest, concentration, all these sort of things are in this fifth aggregate. And you can see that there are many, many parts that make up each moment of our experience. So I'm seeing someone, I am distinguishing. Now, even within distinguishing, I could distinguish depending on attention. What am I paying attention to? So I could be looking somebody, but I could be, and I'm distinguishing them from the people around them, but what I'm paying attention to is their hair, for example, or what they're wearing. Or we could be paying attention to the expression on their face. I mean, there are many things that are going on. So that's changing. What we're looking at is changing. What we're listening to and hearing is also changing. The emotions that are there are changing. And my interest, I'm interested in their hair, or this other person is interested in, their expression because they're concerned about how that person is feeling. Or, there's so many different things. And each of them come from their own cause and their own tendency and their own, the circumstance that you're in. So it's very, very complex, which is wonderful because that allows us to deconstruct it and see that there's nothing solid going on in our experience at all. So when we talk about the 5 aggregates, we're talking about a very, very practical scheme that allows us to deconstruct the seemingly solid feeling of our moment-to-moment experience. As in, for example, I'm in a depression, I'm depressed, as if it's one solid, heavy thing. Well, you might be unhappy, your energy might be low, but there are many mental factors. You don't have strong, aim or willpower to do anything. So classic depression. But also, you're looking at something, you're seeing something, you're hearing something. You are either interested or you're not interested. It's all changing moment to moment. So it's very, very helpful in terms of deconstruction. The whole point of bringing it up is that then we will look more closely at the mechanism, which is described by what's known as the 12 links of dependent arising, that drive us to experience a uncontrollably recurring set of these aggregates that will be coming from confusion and will perpetuate more confusion. But in order to understand the mechanism of how they, go on and on and on, and then to understand how we stop it, which is the actual topic of our lecture, how the understanding of voidness will stop that from recurring, you have to understand first what is recurring, what we want to get rid of, which is the, on one level, the happy and the unhappy, but on the deeper level, we want to get rid of the basis for experiencing it, so that's the aggregates. And then you have to understand, well, what makes them continue? Why do you get more? And when you understand how you get more through the 12 links, then you understand and can identify what's the weak point of that, and how do we actually stop it? And that's with the so-called understanding of voidness. So this is what we will get into on this weekend. So why don't we digest a little bit about the 5 aggregates, and then perhaps it would be appropriate to ask for your questions. Okay. One meditation, by the way, that is done is to just, in our regular experience, while we're sitting in meditation, although it could also be done at any time during the day, is to just try to recognize the 5 aggregates that are making up what you're experiencing. And that way you have some appreciation for the fact that there's nothing solid going on in your experience and that everything is changing and changing at different rates. So that's one type of practice which is done. Anyway, just give you an idea that any aspect of what I've been explaining can be a topic for meditation, and meditation here would just be on the level of recognizing it. Only once you recognize what is a problem can you start to work on how to correct it? And in terms of our aggregates, the problem is misconceiving that, what we're experiencing is so solid that, it's a depression and I can't change it. Poor me. That type of thing. So, questions?
No, I was not.
You had a question?
Yeah, I think I was just looking through my notes, and I think you said we want to change the basis for our experience, not kind of get rid of our whole body-mind complex. And I think I just wasn't really clear on what you meant by changing the base of our experience.
What we mean, she's asking, it was explaining how we want to change the basis of our experiencing, the whole body-mind complex, which is to have a different type of basis. So instead of having a basis of if you just think on a physical level, a body that is going to grow old, get sick, brain is going to get dementia, that type of thing. And don't just think in terms of a human body. Think of what your experience would be if all of a sudden we're born with a brain of a worm or a fly, what our experience of life would be like. And the eye sensors of a fly, so what they see is completely different from what we see. So we want to get rid of having that type of body, having that type of limited mind of a fly. A fly can't understand terribly much. And have a completely different type of body and mind that is not generated by unawareness. So-called pure or untainted. Now, what that actually is, that's not so easy to understand. And there's different levels. There's the level of what a liberated being, an arhat, has, and what a Buddha has. An arhat, a liberated being, who is free from uncontrollably recurring rebirth, has a type of body which is spoken of as being a light body or something similar to a dream body. So it's more subtle than our type of body. And the mind doesn't experience happy and unhappy, doesn't have those type of experiences, but the mind still makes things appear in impossible ways. So it's limited. But an arhat doesn't believe that it corresponds to reality. So an arhat knows that, this is garbage. How things appear to me. So is always aware that, it's sort of like an illusion, as it says. It appears to me that you just came to this room out of nowhere. Just, boop, there you are.
Me too with you.
And I know that that's ridiculous, that obviously you have a life. And you came from, what you were doing before. So I know that the appearance is deceptive. I'm not fooled by it. Into thinking, you should just be paying attention to me. Well, you might have had, a very difficult day. So there's a reason for why you might not be so alert. So an arhat has that type of mind. And a Buddha has a body which is, in the Tantra explanation, the Anuttara Yoga, the highest class of Tantra, we speak about the subtlest level of mind. And that subtlest level of mind When we talk about mind, we're talking about experiencing, subjective experiencing of things. We're not talking about an instrument like a brain that is the physical basis for experiencing. We're talking about experiencing. That's what we talk about. Mental activity. It's activity. Now, there's a physical basis, a physical counterpart to that mental activity. So the subtlest level of it, what is maintaining the continuity, that's known as the clear light mind, and that continues into enlightenment as well. And the physical component of that is called the subtlest life-supporting energy. And a Buddha's body is made of that. And the Buddha's mind is that subtlest type of mind. Now, that can be labeled, as a technical term, this is a really very, very subtle point. It can be labeled onto, a regular type of body. Shakyamuni Buddha appeared in a body, and the body was a baby, and the body grew old, and the body died. So, what's very delicate to understand with that is that there's not a separate, like a soul, the subtlest consciousness that comes in and activates this body. It's not that. But one could label, impute that a Buddha is, what should we say, experience. Very hard to describe that this is a Buddha body. This is a physical basis, but that not actually the body of a Buddha. The body of the Buddha is this subtlest one. Maybe that didn't come out very clearly.
So they have both?
They have both. There's a gross basis that is demonstrating birth and old age and dying, as the Buddha demonstrated in order to teach others. But a Buddha doesn't get born and grow old and die, and the Buddha body doesn't get born and grow old and die. It's just this subtlest level, and on that subtlest level, which is there in our ordinary bodies as well, underlying. But Buddha's, full control and everything is on that level. We don't have access to that level now. So don't think in terms of a Buddha then coming into a body and using it like a machine. But there is this subtlest level that goes on lifetime to lifetime, and that subtlest level needs to have, if it's going to interact with others, some grosser level, that it is somehow, what should we say? Generating, in a sense. There are many, many different theories of this. Now I'm starting to get into trouble because the more that I explain, the more background I would have to bring in. And I don't really think it's appropriate. It would take a tremendous explanation, because there's the Chittamatra, the mind-only view, and there's the Madhyalika view, and there's all these different views of that. But basically, by our compulsiveness, karma, unawareness, etc., it's going to be explained by the 12 links, that we are going to have as our basis for imputation. I mean, we'll get into the discussion of basis for imputation, me, in terms of a body and mind, these grosser levels. There's no me that's separate from it. But on the basis of this ever-changing combination or network. We can say me. The example that I use to explain that is a movie. Every frame of the movie is changing. And there is the title of the movie. The title of the movie is me. But I'm not a title of a movie. I'm not a title. I'm not a name, me, or a word, me. But that refers to something. So the title of the movie refers to a movie. But the whole movie doesn't play in one frame. And it's changing from moment to moment. And so, but there's a movie. So that's mental labeling. There is a movie. Well, there's a basis, and there's a name, and that refers to something on that basis. So that basis can be this tainted, limited stuff. You can label me on that, or that's coming from confusion and compulsive behavior and disturbing emotions and all of that described by the 12 links. And these 5 aggregates are changing, all this time. And we label me, and me is changing all the time, like, the movie plays. And then for an arhat, that's a different type of basis that's not generated by confusion and so on, but it still has its limitations. And for a Buddha, it is a basis that is, what should we say? Not limited. So now that basis is going to have several levels to it. And the one level, which is going to remain stable in terms of providing the continuity, that's the subtlest level, clear light mind. So Buddha really has only, is operating on that level, but there is a basis that's providing the continuity that is what's happening in the movie. Buddha's going here, Buddha going there, helping this one, helping that one. Movie's going on. So it's a little bit like that, if we can use these sort of grosser analogies. Not an easy question. Not an easy answer to a not easy question. But maybe you get a little bit of a feeling. Anybody else? Or the bells are chiming, saying that this is the end. So, then let us respect the bells. And we end with a dedication. What is that? Dedication is that we have some sort of understanding that's come from this. There's some sort of positive energy, if you want to call it that, positive potential. You talk about merit. It's a terrible way of translating the word. It is positive potential that could ripen to more understanding, more clarity of mind, and so on. So it's a potential. So if we don't dedicate it, again, let's use the analogy of a computer. It's like the default setting of the computer is that all of this gets saved in the samsara folder. And it will contribute to being able to have a clever intellectual discussion over the coffee table about Buddhism. Very nice, but trivial. So we don't want it to go into the default setting into the samsara folder. The dedication is saving it in the enlightenment folder. May this contribute to, and now Shantideva gives very good guidance here. It's not just me and my enlightenment, to hell with everybody else, but it's for everybody's enlightenment. may contribute to everyone's enlightenment for the benefit of us all. So it's just mentally how you direct that energy. It's basically a strong wish. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.